Hello, I am Scott Yannick. I'm a student of Dr. Heracles Panagiotides, and today we are going to be learning some New Testament Greek together. And specifically, just to start out, a pretty important thing to know, the alphabet. And yeah, that's all. So here we go. First letter, alpha. Again, alpha. This is very much like the letter A, and it's where we get the letter A, and it's pronounced just like the letter A, so nice and easy. This letter is a bit tricky. It looks like a B. We call it beta in English, but it's vita. Again, vita. And it's pronounced more like the V in the word very. Here's gamma. Gamma. Or as we would call it, gamma. It looks like a Y. Don't let that fool you. It is a gamma. And it's not quite pronounced the same as a G, like in go. It's a bit softer and a bit, I guess, slower to be pronounced. So think of go versus ginome. It comes out slower. Next we have delta. Again, delta. So the lowercase looks like a D, and of course we call it delta. It's where we get the letter D, but it's more pronounced like a TH in the word then or the. Next we have epsilon. Again, epsilon. This is, it looks like an E, and it's just pronounced like an E, sort of a softer E, and there's only a few exceptions to that where it'll be in diphthongs, and that's the only reason it's pronounced differently. Next is zeta. Zeta. It looks like a Z. It's pronounced like a Z. Nice and easy. Next is eta. Eta. This is the first of several letters that is pronounced E. Sort of looks like an H in uppercase and an N in lowercase, but what can you do? It's called eta. Next is theta. Again, theta. And this is just like a TH in the word thought, for example. Different TH to a delta. That was then, and this is theta like thought. Next we have iota. Again, iota. This is the second letter that's pronounced E, usually. It can also be in diphthongs, and that'll change things, but for now, just by itself, iota is pronounced E, just like eta as well. Next is kappa. Kappa. Looks like a K, pronounced like a K. Should be nice and easy. Next is lambda. Lambda. And you just pronounce it like it's the letter L. This one's really only tricky in its name, because in English we call it lambda, but because you have vita and delta, it's lambda. So that sort of changes the name a little bit, but as far as pronouncing words, that doesn't matter at all. Next is mi. Again, mi. And it obviously, you can see the resemblance to the letter M in the uppercase. The lowercase is a bit less clear. It sort of looks like a U. I don't know. It is pronounced like an M. And yeah, it effectively is an M, is my point. Next is ni. Again, ni. This one can be a little tough when you're starting out, because it looks exactly like a V in the lowercase, but it's quite different. You have vita for that, whereas this one, it's called ni, and it's just pronounced like an N, just like mi, m, ni, n. Next is xi. Again, xi. This letter is pronounced like the X in fox, which hopefully won't be confusing for this letter, but keep in mind, we will come back around to this. There's another letter in the Greek alphabet that actually does look like an X, but it's this letter that's pronounced like an X. So remember that, and I'll mention that again when we come around to that letter. Next is Omicron. Again, Omicron. And this looks like an O, and it is just pronounced like an O. Yeah, pretty simple. Next, I gave you a sneak peek of this one. We have P. Again, P. And hopefully this should be familiar. It's used as a symbol in mathematics and many fields of academics. This is just pronounced like a normal P, the Latin letter P, and yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Next is Rho. Again, Rho. Now, we had P here. Now we have the letter that looks like P, but it's pronounced like a rolled R. And yeah, so the appearance can be confusing, but just remember, Rho, the letter that looks like a P, is actually pronounced like an R. Next is Sigma. Again, Sigma. So this is essentially just the letter S. You see two versions of the lowercase there. The one on the left that looks sort of like an Omicron with, like a diving board on it. That is what a sigma will look like when it's in any place in a word except for the very last letter. And the second lowercase sigma, which looks more like the letter C, I guess, with sort of a looping tail, that's what it will look like when it is at the end of a word. Next we have Taf. Again, Taf. And this looks like a T. It's pronounced like a T. Nice and easy. Ypsilon. Ypsilon. This is the third and final letter, like ita and iota, that when you see it by itself, it will be pronounced E. I know it looks like a Y, and it also looks like a U. It is, when you see Greek words sort of transliterated into the Latin alphabet, you will often see this letter changed into a Y, and it is where we get the letter Y. So yeah, just remember, pronounced like E. This is one of the weirder letters for diphthongs, like you heard me just a minute ago pronounce this, taf. So it can get a little weird when you combine it with other vowels, but we'll get to that in another lesson. Next is phi. Again, phi. And this letter is, you could say like an F. It's probably more correct to say a PH, but they're pronounced the same way. It's the same sound. So yeah, sort of that, like PH in photo. Next is he. Again, he. And this is the letter I warned you about. It looks like an X, but it's not pronounced like an X. Again, it's he. Psi. Psi. This letter essentially is P plus sigma, and that will be important to know later on when we're looking at the formation of words. Sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, it's actually quite frequent that you will, to create some alternate form of a word, you'll add a sigma and it will come next to a P, and both of those letters disappear and you get this one letter instead. And finally, we have omega. Omega. And this, just sort of like a little fun thing to look at, you have omicron, small o, and omega, big O. Yeah, I don't know. That's really all I have to say about this letter. It is just like an O. So now that you can see sort of some cognate letters, let's look at these words and maybe you'll be able to recognize some stuff. So this first word, grafo, it means I write or I draw, and that's, you can probably hear it, that's where we get graph, calligraphy, photograph, stuff like that. The second word here, polis, which means city or state or city-state. In the ancient Greek world, those lines of city and state were often blurred. And this is where we get politics, essentially things pertaining to the state, and metropolis, which literally translates to mother city. And finally, we have logos, which means many things, actually. It can mean a word, a certain argument, a reason for something. It can also mean study, which is how we see it quite often, like biology is the study of life. Dialogue is essentially like words between people. And there's logic, there's apology. So yeah, there you go. There's those words, which hopefully, you can see what every letter is. Possibly you can sound it out. Maybe that's ambitious. Maybe we need to wait for the pronunciation lesson, but either way, there's those for you. And that's all for today. Thank you.